The girl sat by the window, her fingers tapping lightly on the edge of the table as she watched the rain fall. She loved rainy days, not because of the gloom or the wet streets, but because it made the world feel quieter. The kind of quiet where she could think about music, where she could imagine the soft notes of a piano filling the room. Her mother had always told her that music was a language of the heart, and she had believed it ever since she first touched the piano keys in the small corner of their living room. She had always been careful about her love for music. She knew that others sometimes didn't understand. At school, people thought of her as shy and unremarkable. She wasn't the fastest runner, the loudest in the class, or the most outgoing. But when she played the piano, it felt like she could speak in a way that words never allowed. Her mother noticed it first. She would often sit silently, listening to the girl practice simple melodies. The way her fingers danced across the keys as if they had a life of their own. The mother's eyes would soften, and sometimes a tear would escape, just because the music was beautiful, and because she knew her daughter was expressing something that went beyond words. One afternoon, she had an idea. There was a piece she had always wanted to play, something difficult, something that felt big and bold. She knew it would take practice, and she wanted to ask her music teacher if she could have extra time on the piano in the school music room after classes. She rehearsed the words in her head, over and over, making sure it sounded polite, simple, and not too demanding. She knocked lightly on the door after class and stepped inside, trying to appear confident even though her stomach was tight with nervousness. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I was wondering if I could practice this piece a little more after school. I just want to try it and see if I can improve." She tried to smile, hoping that would make her request seem reasonable. Her teacher looked up from the paperwork on the desk, a small smile fading into something closer to surprise. "After school? You mean instead of going to the club or just going home?" "Yes, please. I promise I won't take too long," she replied, her voice barely louder than a whisper. She felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe her teacher would understand. But then the teacher shook their head. "You know, you're already doing well with your regular practice. Why do you need extra time?" There was no anger, no cruelty, just a polite disbelief that made the girl's heart sink. She had expected some resistance, but not this quiet dismissal. She left the room with her request unmet, her shoulders slumping slightly. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the school courtyard damp and glistening. Some students laughed and ran by with umbrellas, their voices echoing in the open space. The girl walked slowly, feeling small, but not defeated. Inside her, a quiet determination began to grow. If no one else could give her the time she needed, she would find a way to make it happen herself. At home, the living room was warm, filled with the familiar scent of home-cooked food and old books. The piano sat in its corner, waiting. She approached it slowly, running her fingers across the keys, feeling the familiar resistance, the smooth glide, the tiny click of each note. She remembered her mother's words. "Music is patient. It waits for you." For the next few hours, she played. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but with a kind of careful dedication that made every note meaningful. Sometimes she would stop, frown at her fingers, and try again. Sometimes she would lean back, close her eyes, and let the music flow freely, almost forgetting that anyone was listening. Her mother watched from the kitchen doorway, a soft smile on her face, not saying a word. She didn't need to. The girl was already doing what she loved, and that was enough. Evenings were the hardest. The house grew quiet, and sometimes her thoughts turned to doubts. Maybe the teacher was right. Maybe she was asking too much. Maybe she wasn't meant to play this piece. Maybe she should just stick to what she knew. But then she remembered the feeling she got when the music moved through her fingers, when she felt her heart and her mind working together to create something beautiful. That feeling was stronger than any doubt. In the days that followed, she made small plans. She would arrive early to school to practice on the old upright piano in the music room when no one else was there. She would carry her sheet music carefully, as if it were a treasure, and study it during breaks. Slowly, piece by piece, she began to learn the complicated parts of the composition she had longed to play. Her fingers hurt at first, sore from stretching to reach the notes just right, but she welcomed the ache as proof that she was working, that she was growing. Her classmates still teased her sometimes. They didn't mean anything serious, just small jabs and jokes about how she spent too much time at the piano, how she wasn't like the other kids. First, it stung. She had never liked being the subject of laughter. But then she realized something important. The people who were mocking her didn't understand what she felt when she played. They didn't know the joy, the sense of purpose, the quiet pride in mastering a tricky part. And that mattered more than any words they said. Her mother noticed the change in her too. She would sometimes sit next to her, listening as the girl practiced late into the evening, and quietly adjust the piano bench, or hand her a small cup of tea. She never said, "I told you so," because she didn't need to. The girl could feel the pride in her mother's eyes, the silent support that made her feel brave enough to keep going, even when it seemed like no one else believed in her. One evening, as the girl played a particularly difficult passage, she paused and looked at the keys. She realized how far she had come from the nervous child who had asked for a simple favor that day in the music room. The notes no longer seemed impossible. Her fingers moved with confidence. The music flowed, and she felt, for the first time, a quiet sense of power and accomplishment. It wasn't about showing off or proving anyone wrong. It was about proving to herself that she could reach her goals, no matter how small the first step had seemed. The night ended with the girl sitting quietly at the piano, her hands folded in her lap, feeling a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. The room was dark except for the soft glow of a single lamp. Outside, the wind had picked up again, rattling the window panes. Inside, there was warmth, quiet, and the sound of dreams beginning to take shape. She didn't know what would happen next, whether anyone would notice her dedication, or whether her simple request would ever be taken seriously. But she knew one thing. She had started a journey, and the first step had been hers alone. The piano, the music, and the quiet support of her mother would guide her, one note at a time. Days passed, and the girl continued her secret practice with quiet determination. She arrived at school earlier than usual, her backpack slung over one shoulder and her sheet music carefully tucked inside. The music room was still dark, silent except for the occasional creak of the old floorboards. She switched on the lights, the soft hum filling the space, and approached the piano, her fingers tracing the keys with familiarity and care. No one came in. The hallways were still empty, and she felt a small sense of freedom. Here, she could play without judgment, without whispers or laughter from classmates who didn't understand. She started with the scales, each note rising and falling, warming up her hands, stretching her fingers. Then she moved to the piece she had longed to play, the challenging sections that had made her hesitate before. She played slowly, carefully, over and over, her determination stronger than any doubt. Sometimes mistakes would interrupt her flow. A finger would stumble, a note would sound wrong, and she would pause, take a deep breath and start again. She learned patience through these moments. Each error was a lesson, a reminder that growth was a process, not a sudden achievement. She began to notice small improvements, the once awkward parts of the music becoming smoother, more confident. After school, when the hallways filled with students chatting and laughing, she stayed behind. The janitor would sometimes peek in, raising an eyebrow, but never stopped her. He seemed to sense her dedication and quietly let her be. These moments became sacred. They were her private sanctuary where she could pour her energy into the music, feeling it flow through her like a current that both challenged and comforted her. At home, her mother noticed the change. She saw the way her daughter would come home tired but content, humming melodies softly as she set her books down. She didn't push or ask too many questions, because she knew her child needed space. Instead, she would quietly prepare a cup of tea, or leave a warm blanket nearby, small gestures that said, "I see you. I believe in you." Her friends at school didn't understand. They continued to make teasing remarks, light-hearted jabs about how much time she spent on piano. Sometimes they said, "Why don't you just play something easy?" Or, "It's just music. It's not that big of a deal." First, she felt a sting. Their laughter and words could have broken her confidence, but she began to see them differently. Their mockery wasn't about her. It was about their inability to understand her passion. Slowly, she learned to tune out their words, just as she tuned the piano before she played, focusing only on what mattered. She began to notice subtle changes in herself. Her hands became stronger, her fingers more nimble. She could read sheet music more fluently, spotting patterns and rhythms that had once been confusing. Her confidence grew quietly, a soft glow within her that no one could see but her. Every evening, when she sat down at the piano, she felt the strength, this sense of progress, and it gave her courage to push further. Her mother sometimes joined her, sitting silently in the corner, listening without interrupting. She never gave advice unless asked. One night, she just placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder and smiled. That single gesture spoke louder than any words, reinforcing the idea that dedication, patience, and love were stronger than any mockery or doubt from the outside world. The girl also discovered new ways to learn. She would watch videos of famous pianists, studying their techniques, their finger movements, and the way they expressed emotion. She tried to mimic them, adapting what she learned to her own style. Some attempts were awkward, but she found joy in experimenting. Each small discovery became a tiny victory, fueling her excitement and determination to keep improving. Her progress didn't go unnoticed by everyone. A few teachers began to see her focus and skill, nodding in approval when she played during music class. Even some classmates, the ones who had teased her before, started to pay attention, whispering among themselves, surprised at how well she could perform. Though she didn't play for their approval, it gave her a quiet satisfaction to know that dedication could change people's perceptions. There were moments of exhaustion and doubt too. Some days her fingers ached, her mind felt tired, and the thought of practicing seemed like a heavy weight. On those days she would stop, close her eyes, and remember why she loved music in the first place. It wasn't about recognition or praise. It was about the feeling of creating something beautiful, about expressing herself in a way that words could never capture. That love became her anchor, guiding her back to the piano whenever she felt unsure. Her mother shared small stories of her own childhood, about the challenges of learning and growing, about the importance of patience and perseverance. These stories became lessons in resilience, quietly reminding the girl that every step, no matter how small, was part of a larger journey. She began to see that practice wasn't just about perfect notes. It was about learning discipline, focus, and the courage to keep trying even when it was difficult. On weekends, she would sometimes play for the family, her younger siblings listening in awe, her mother smiling quietly from the couch. These moments were different from the secret practice sessions. They were full of warmth, connection, and joy. She realized that music had the power to bring people together, to create emotions that were shared and felt deeply. This understanding made her work even harder, giving her a sense of purpose beyond her own personal achievement. As weeks turned into months, her skill grew noticeably. Pieces that had once felt impossible became manageable. Her fingers moved with confidence, her expression more relaxed, and her understanding of rhythm and melody deeper. She began to see that dedication, even when it seemed unnoticed, produced results. The journey itself was shaping her character, teaching her patience, humility, and persistence. One day, she caught herself smiling during practice. It was a smile of quiet pride, the kind that comes not from external praise but from self-recognition. She had come a long way from the nervous girl who had asked a simple favor in the music room. Her efforts were paying off, and though the outside world might still underestimate her, she had found something far more valuable: belief in herself. Her mother continued to be her quiet support, never forcing praise or pushing expectations. Together, they shared a silent understanding, a bond that deepened with each note played. The girl realized that this journey was not just about mastering a piece of music. It was about growth, courage, and the power of persistence. Even as challenges and doubts arose, she met them with determination. Each practice session was a small victory, each improvement a step forward. The world outside might be quick to mock or dismiss, But within the walls of the music room, she found her voice, her confidence, and her joy. The music became a reflection of her heart, a testament to the strength she had discovered within herself. And with each passing day, she felt more prepared for whatever lay ahead, knowing that her dedication would carry her further than anyone could have imagined. The day of the school recital was approaching, and the girl felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. It was the first time she would perform in front of such a large audience, and though she had played for her family and in small classroom settings, this felt different. The hallways buzzed with chatter as students rehearsed their speeches, instruments, and songs. She moved quietly, carrying her sheet music and her own quiet determination, keeping her focus on the piano and not the noise around her. In the music room, she practiced one last time before the recital. Her fingers flew across the keys, sometimes tripping over difficult passages, but each mistake taught her something new. She remembered all the early mornings, the evenings spent in solitude with only the piano and her music, and the small victories that had led her here. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, the quiet support that had always been there. You can do this. Just play from your heart. At school, some students whispered and laughed, doubting her ability to perform well. They had always mocked her, calling her dedication excessive or unnecessary. She felt a flicker of anxiety but reminded herself that this was her moment, not theirs. She didn't need approval from those who couldn't understand her passion. She only needed to trust herself, the countless hours she had spent practicing, and the music that had become a part of her being. Backstage, the atmosphere was tense. The lights, the murmurs of the audience, the rustle of programs, all combined to create a feeling that made her heart race. She took a deep breath, feeling the cool sweat on her palms, and reminded herself of everything she had worked for. The piano in the hall looked different from her familiar practice room. Its keys gleamed under the bright lights, and the size of the stage made the hall feel much larger than it was. When her turn came, she walked onto the stage quietly, her heart pounding in her chest. She adjusted the bench, sat down, and opened the sheet music, though she hardly needed it. Her fingers rested lightly on the keys. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her mind focus on the music, blocking out the whispers, the stares, and the doubts. She remembered the quiet practice sessions, the moments of pain and joy, the evenings spent learning and perfecting every note. This was her, and she was ready. The first notes flowed out soft and steady. The audience fell silent as the sound of the piano filled the hall. Her fingers moved with confidence, hitting each note with precision, while also expressing the emotion she felt deep inside. The music was more than just notes on a page. It was a story of her determination, her patience, and her love for music. Some faces in the audience shifted, surprised at the level of skill and the emotion she was conveying. Midway through, a tricky passage approached, one she had practiced countless times alone. She hesitated for a split second, feeling the nerves creep back, but then she remembered the quiet early mornings and late evenings, the persistent effort, and the encouragement from her mother. She pressed on, her fingers gliding over the keys, mastering the passage perfectly. The sound was rich, clear, and expressive, capturing the attention of everyone in the hall. As she continued, the music became more fluid, more confident. She felt herself merging with the piano, each note reflecting her personality, her emotions, and the journey she had taken to get here. The audience listened in awe, some leaning forward, captivated by the unexpected depth and beauty of the performance. Those who had mocked her before could no longer doubt her skill or dedication. They watched, silently acknowledging the talent they had dismissed. Her mother sat in the front row, her hands folded in her lap, a small smile on her face, her eyes glistening. She had seen every practice session, every struggle, every small triumph, and now she could witness the culmination of all that effort. The pride she felt was immense, and she couldn't hold back the tears that threatened to fall. She wanted to stand and cheer, but she knew the music deserved silence and focus, so she allowed her gaze to linger, full of love and admiration. The final notes echoed through the hall, soft and lingering. The girl lifted her hands from the keys, feeling a sense of completion and accomplishment. The hall stayed quiet for a moment, as if the audience was savoring what they had just heard. Then, slowly, applause began to grow, louder and louder, filling the space with appreciation and admiration. Some students clapped enthusiastically, some teachers smiled proudly, and her mother's eyes sparkled with pride and joy. Backstage, she exhaled deeply, her body relaxing after the intense performance. She had done it. She had played with all her heart and skill, and the result was beyond what she had imagined. The nervousness melted away, replaced by a sense of satisfaction and confidence. She realized that all the effort, the quiet practice sessions, the ignored requests, and the mocking words had been worth it. They had shaped her into the performer she had become. Her classmates came to congratulate her, some genuinely impressed, others with surprise in their eyes. Even those who had laughed at her dedication had to acknowledge her talent. She smiled politely, graciously accepting their words, but deep inside, she knew the true reward wasn't their recognition. It was the growth, the discipline, and the ability to express herself fully through the piano. That night at home, she replayed the performance in her mind, remembering the feeling of her fingers on the keys, the sound filling the hall, and the audience's reaction. Her mother sat beside her, still glowing with pride, and they shared a quiet moment of connection. Words weren't necessary. The music had already spoken, and they both understood the journey it represented. The experience left a lasting impact on her. She realized that the moments of doubt, the teasing, and the challenges she had faced had not broken her. Instead, they had strengthened her, teaching her the value of patience, resilience, and self-belief. She had learned that even when others dismiss or underestimate you, your own dedication and love for what you do can create something remarkable. As she prepared for bed that night, she felt a quiet sense of anticipation for the future. The recital was just one milestone, one step in her ongoing journey with music. She knew there would be more challenges, more pieces to master, and more moments when others might doubt her. But she also knew that she had the ability to overcome them, to persevere, and to let her passion guide her. The piano would always be there, a companion, a teacher, and a mirror reflecting her growth and determination. She fell asleep with a gentle smile, feeling the satisfaction of accomplishment and the excitement of what lay ahead. The stage, the lights, and the applause had shown her a glimpse of the possibilities, but it was the quiet dedication, the countless hours of practice, and the unwavering belief in herself that had truly made this moment possible. And she knew, deep inside, that this was only the beginning of the music she was meant to create, and the person she was becoming through every note she played. The morning after the recital, the girl woke with a strange mix of excitement and calm. The applause still echoed in her mind, a warm reminder of the night before. She smiled, remembering how her fingers had moved across the keys, how the hall had fallen silent as the music filled every corner, and how proud her mother had looked in the front row. It felt like a dream, yet it was real, and it had changed something inside her. At school, the atmosphere was different. People were talking about the recital, sharing their impressions, and whispering about her performance. The girl walked through the hallways quietly, listening but not letting it overwhelm her. Some students approached her, offering congratulations, their eyes wide with surprise. Others, who had teased her in the past, seemed unsure of what to say. She smiled politely, feeling a quiet satisfaction. She didn't need everyone to understand. She only needed to know what she had achieved for herself. Her music teacher stopped her in the hallway, a genuine smile on their face. "You played beautifully last night," they said, nodding. "Your dedication really shows. Keep it up. You have a real talent." The girl felt a flush of pride, but it wasn't arrogance. It was validation, a gentle confirmation that her efforts, her patience, and her belief in herself had been worthwhile. Back at home, her mother was waiting with breakfast, a soft smile on her face. She didn't need to ask how the recital went. She already knew. The girl recounted small details anyway, the nervous moments backstage, the tricky passages she had managed, the feeling of the audience listening intently. Her mother listened quietly, her eyes filled with pride. They shared a moment of understanding, the kind that didn't require words. The music had said everything, and they both felt it deeply. In the following days, the girl found herself thinking about the performance over and over. She analyzed what went well, what she could improve, and how she could prepare for the next piece. She realized that the recital was just the beginning. Music was a journey, and each performance was a step along the path. The recognition she received was encouraging, but it was the personal growth, the discipline, and the joy of creating music that truly mattered. Her classmates began to show a different attitude. Some who had mocked her before now approached her with curiosity, asking questions about her practice routine and the piece she had played. She answered politely, never boasting, but she felt a quiet sense of influence. Her dedication had shown them that passion and effort could achieve remarkable results. It wasn't about winning anyone over. It was about showing the power of persistence. The girl continued her practice, more focused than ever. She explored new compositions, each one more challenging than the last. She experimented with techniques she had seen in videos of professional pianists, incorporating subtle nuances and expressions into her own style. Some attempts were difficult and mistakes happened, but she welcomed them as part of the learning process. Each challenge became a new opportunity to grow. Her mother remained a constant support. She never pushed, never pressured. She simply observed, offered encouragement when needed, and provided comfort when the girl felt overwhelmed. One evening, after a particularly long practice session, her mother handed her a warm cup of tea and said softly, "I see how hard you're working. I'm proud of you, not just for your music, but for your dedication." The girl smiled, feeling the weight of those words. Pride from her mother meant more than applause from any audience. Outside of school, the girl sought inspiration in different ways. She visited a local music academy, watched performances, and listened to recordings of classical pianists. She studied the expressions, the techniques, and the emotions conveyed through music. She realized that her journey was not just about mastering a single piece, but about developing a deeper understanding of music itself. The learning became exciting, a continuous challenge that fueled her curiosity and determination. Despite the praise she received, the girl remained humble. She knew that music was a lifelong pursuit, and there would always be more to learn. She welcomed criticism and feedback from teachers, using it as guidance to improve. Her confidence grew, but it was a quiet, steady confidence rooted in skill, practice, and a genuine love for what she was doing. She no longer worried about mockery or doubt. She had proven to herself that dedication could overcome external judgment. One afternoon, while practicing a new composition, she noticed a small group of students gathering outside the music room, listening quietly. They didn't interrupt, but their presence was felt. She played with all her heart, and when she finished, they clapped softly. Some whispered words of admiration, and for the first time, she felt that her music had the power to inspire others. It wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about sharing a piece of herself in a way that touched others. Her mother watched from the doorway, smiling, sensing the subtle changes in her daughter. The girl's perseverance, discipline, and love for music had grown stronger. She had learned resilience, patience, and self-belief. Her dedication had not only improved her skill, but had also shaped her character, teaching her that success was built on consistent effort and inner strength. The girl began to dream bigger. She thought about participating in competitions, performing at community events, and perhaps even teaching others one day. She understood that her journey was far from over, and each step forward required focus, practice, and courage. But the fear and uncertainty that had once held her back had lessened. She knew that her love for music would guide her, and that the support of her mother would always be there, quietly encouraging her from the sidelines. She continued to practice daily, exploring new pieces and refining her technique. Her fingers became even more agile, her sense of rhythm more precise, and her expression more emotive. She discovered a deeper connection to music, realizing that it was more than just a skill or a performance. It was a language of the heart, a way to express what words could not capture. The girl also began to notice small changes in her own confidence and demeanor. She walked with a little more certainty, spoke with a quieter assurance, and handled challenges with patience. Music had taught her resilience, the value of hard work, and the importance of believing in oneself even when others doubt you. These lessons extended beyond the piano, shaping her interactions, her mindset, and her outlook on life. Every evening, as she played, she remembered the journey that had brought her here. The small requests that had been mocked, the secret practice sessions, the perseverance through mistakes, and the quiet support of her mother. Each note she played was a reflection of that journey, a testament to her growth and determination. She understood that music was not just about performance, but about the dedication, love, and effort behind it. The girl knew that challenges would continue to come. There would be harder pieces, critical audiences, and moments of doubt. But she also knew that she had the strength to face them, the discipline to practice through difficulties, and the passion to keep going. Music had become more than a skill. It had become a source of identity, pride, and joy. As she sat at the piano, playing softly in the glow of the evening light, she felt a sense of peace. The world outside could be uncertain, mocking, or dismissive, but here, with the piano and her music, she had found her voice, her strength, and her joy. The journey that had begun with a small request and a quiet determination had grown into a path of growth, confidence, and self-discovery. And she knew, deep in her heart, that the best was still to come, guided by her love for music and the unwavering support of her mother. The months following the recital were filled with growth, practice, and quiet achievements. The girl continued to dedicate herself to the piano, her fingers becoming more confident, her expression more emotive, and her love for music deeper than ever. Each day was a step forward, and each note she played reflected not only skill but determination, perseverance, and the small victories that had brought her this far. Her mother continued to be her quiet support, always present yet never intrusive. Sometimes, she would simply sit nearby, knitting or reading, watching her daughter play. Other times, she would offer gentle encouragement, reminding her that progress was more important than perfection. These small gestures created a sense of security and confidence, giving the girl the courage to try more challenging compositions and experiment with her own style. One afternoon, she received an invitation to perform at a local community event. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. It was a chance to play for an audience outside of school, and she wanted to give her best performance. She prepared carefully, practicing every day, refining the pieces she had mastered, and working on new techniques. The anticipation grew, but instead of fear, she felt a quiet determination to share her music with others. When the day of the event arrived, the hall was filled with people, chatting and settling into their seats. The girl took a deep breath, carrying her sheet music and walking towards the piano. She remembered her first recital, the nervous moments backstage, the applause, and her mother's proud smile. She realized that every step she had taken had prepared her for this moment. She felt ready, not just to play, but to express herself fully through her music. As she began, the notes flowed naturally, soft at first, then rising in intensity. Her fingers moved with confidence, and her expression conveyed the emotion behind the music. The audience listened quietly, captivated by the skill and passion she displayed. She could feel the energy of the room, the anticipation, and the connection between her music and the listeners. It was a powerful moment, a confirmation that her dedication had led to something meaningful. The performance was flawless, not because there were no mistakes, but because she played with sincerity and heart. The audience erupted in applause at the end, some standing, some clapping enthusiastically, all moved by the music. Her mother's eyes shone with pride, and she couldn't hide the tears that had formed. The girl felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that her hard work had created something that touched others. It was a triumph of perseverance, passion, and love for music. In the weeks that followed, she received invitations to play at other events, both at school and in the community. She continued to practice diligently, exploring more complex compositions and refining her technique. Each performance, each audience, each note played became part of her journey. She learned to manage nerves, to focus under pressure, and to embrace the joy of sharing her music with others. Her confidence grew steadily, not from fame or recognition, but from the knowledge that she could overcome challenges and express herself through the piano. Her classmates' attitudes continued to change as well. Those who had once mocked her now looked at her with respect. Some approached her for advice. Others simply listened in admiration as she played. She never let their approval define her, but it was a quiet reminder that dedication and effort could change perceptions. More importantly, she realized that the most important validation came from within, from her own sense of accomplishment and joy. At home, evenings were often spent in shared music sessions. Her mother would sometimes play along on another instrument, or simply listen, offering encouragement and appreciation. These moments strengthened their bond and reminded the girl of the foundation that had supported her from the very beginning. Music had become more than a skill or a hobby. It had become a language of connection, a way to express emotion, and a means to build relationships. The girl also began mentoring younger students at her school who showed interest in music. She shared her experiences, encouraged them to practice, and helped them understand the value of patience and persistence. Through teaching, she learned even more about music and herself. She discovered that sharing knowledge and passion could be as rewarding as performing, and that inspiring others was another form of success. Despite the growing recognition, she remained humble. She understood that every accomplishment was built on countless hours of practice, quiet effort, and learning from mistakes. She approached each new piece with curiosity and dedication, never taking her skills for granted. The love for music continued to drive her, and she remained committed to improving, exploring, and expressing herself. Her mother often reminded her of the small request that had started it all, the simple favor she had asked for to practice that difficult piece. It seemed like such a small moment, but it had sparked a journey of growth, determination, and self-discovery. The girl realized that even the smallest steps could lead to extraordinary outcomes when met with perseverance and love. The girl's life gradually transformed. Music was no longer just a pastime. It was a central part of her identity. She learned resilience, discipline, and the importance of believing in herself. She discovered that challenges and mockery could be turned into motivation, that persistence could overcome doubt, and that passion could create beauty and connection in the world. Every note she played carried a piece of her journey, her heart, and her spirit. As she looked back, she realized that the journey had not been easy. There were moments of doubt, frustration, and loneliness. There were nights when practice felt like a burden and days when progress seemed slow. Yet each obstacle had taught her valuable lessons about patience, dedication, and self-belief. She learned that success was not a single moment, but a series of small, consistent efforts, and that the love for what she did was the true reward. Her story became an inspiration to those around her. People who once doubted her now admired her dedication, her skill, and the way she remained humble and kind despite recognition. Her performances touched hearts, and her mentorship encouraged others to pursue their passions with the same commitment. She realized that her journey was not only about achieving personal goals, but also about inspiring and uplifting others. The girl continued to play, to practice, and to dream. She explored new compositions, experimented with different styles, and sought out opportunities to share her music. She faced challenges with courage, remembering the lessons she had learned along the way. Every performance, every note, and every connection with the audience reinforced her love for music and her belief in herself. In the quiet moments, when she sat at the piano alone, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The small request that had been mocked, the secret practices, the first recital, and the growing recognition. All of it formed a tapestry of experience, growth, and perseverance. She understood that true success was not measured by applause or accolades alone, but by the dedication, passion, and resilience that guided her every step. Her mother remained by her side, proud, supportive, and loving. The bond between them deepened with each note played, each lesson learned, and each moment of shared joy. The girl knew that this support, combined with her own determination, had made all the difference. Music had become a path to self-discovery, confidence, and fulfillment, and it had created a lifelong connection between her and her mother. As she looked forward, she knew that her journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new pieces to master, and new audiences to inspire. But she also knew that she had the strength, skill, and heart to face whatever lay ahead. Every step of her journey, from the smallest request to the applause of countless performances, had taught her that perseverance, passion, and belief in oneself could lead to extraordinary outcomes. The girl sat at her piano, the keys smooth under her fingers, the music flowing naturally. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, pride, and excitement for the future. She had proven to herself that dedication could overcome doubt, that passion could create beauty, and that small beginnings could lead to remarkable achievements. Her music was a reflection of her journey, her growth, and her heart, and she knew that it would continue to guide her through every stage of her life. And in that quiet, golden moment, she understood that she had not only fulfilled a dream, but had discovered the true power of perseverance, love, and belief in oneself.